Next up, at UFC Vegas 98, we have Dan Argueta taking on UFC newcomer Cody Haddon. Dan Argueta 9-2 in his career. He is 1-2-2 in his last 5, coming off the come-from-ahead loss to Gene Matsumoto. He's taking on Cody Haddon. Cody Haddon is 5-0 in his last 5. He is making his UFC debut. Dan Argueta is... I'm very high on Dan Argueta. I've appreciated his career in the UFC for quite some time now. He's a short, stocky wrestler. He's going to come across the cage, wrap up your body, muscle you to the ground, and then start working. He's got good pressure. There's no space. Once he gets on you, it's very hard to get back up. It's very hard to create that space and get out of there. He has one single game plan. Move forward, get this fight to the ground, whether it's dragging or shooting full-blown singles and doubles. He is coming off that loss to Gene Matsumoto, who Jacob is very, very high on.
Gene Matsumoto!
But he did look very good in that fight early. He landed big. He had some good takedowns. Like, he did well early.
Landed big?
He threw a big overhand, immediately got a takedown, and then he had 8 other takedowns after that. He had 9 takedowns in that fight. He was looking good, and then ultimately hung his head and got guillotined. That's what happened. To pretend that's not what happened is insane.
Landed big. He
landed a huge overhand, took that dude down.
Not on Gene. You don't fucking land nothing on my guy Gene Matsumoto.
We'll argue about Gene 7 days from today.
You're gonna argue that?
No, I think Gene wins that fight next.
Oh, he's gonna smoke Katana.
Then we're taking on Cody Haddon. This guy's a solid prospect. One loss in his career to Steve Erceg on the regional scene. He's a busy fighter. He sets an insane pace. He doesn't really slow down. Clean boxing. When he throws, he does throw in combinations. Does a good job working the body. He's also a slick grappler. He can be busy on top or on bottom. If he is on top, he's raining down strikes. If he's on bottom, he's making scrambles, getting the hell out of there. Cody's a pretty big favorite here. The line is tightening a little bit because it was even bigger than this just the other day. So now it's tightening back up a tiny bit. In his UFC debut against the guy that we have seen success have at the UFC level, I'm not trusting Cody at these odds. Because Dan Argueta can win fights. I'm a big fan of his. I appreciate the fight style. He always has some success. It's like you're not watching him get sparked. Look what he just did to, what's his name? In that no contest. What the hell is his name?
Miles Johns?
No, he lost to Miles Johns.
Ronnie Lawrence?
Ronnie Lawrence. Ronnie Lawrence is supposed to be a nasty wrestler. Dan Argueta was the dog. Dan Argueta just bodied him. Pushed him around, bullied him, just beat the piss out of him. Wasn't even a close grappling match. Dan Argueta's wrestling is underappreciated. I am going to pick Cody here because Cody never settles. If you take him down, he's moving like crazy. If you're on your feet, he's moving like crazy.
No, wishy-washy bullshit.
The wishy-washy here is to say, do not trust these odds. Don't see, oh, he's a debut. They must be pushing the shit out of him. I don't trust these odds at all. I am going to lean the prospect because Dan has had a bit of bad luck recently. I'll be rooting for Dan. No bet here whatsoever. What do you think, Cheeky Boy?
I'll say, you mentioned the run of bad luck. It feels like Dan is due for some good karma because he has had some bad luck, right? I mean, the Ronnie Lawrence stuff, he got beat by Miles, but Miles was the drug test, whatever that was, and then, he was, I guess, kind of taking down Gene every once in a while, and then he jumps into guillotine on that fight. Dan Argueta is a fucking... before the breakdown, I made the joke about cocaine because he fights like he is on fucking cocaine in those fights. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind he is probably going to get a takedown or two on a guy like Cody Haddon. If you're taking down Gene Matsumoto, you're probably taking down just about anybody, and he is going to go for the takedowns, and he is all in for the takedowns. Unfortunately, it's kind of all he's got. Right. I mean, he doesn't really have any hands. He's got some submission threats. You saw that with the Ronnie Lawrence. He was going back and forth with the front chokes. The anaconda dart just switching back and forth. I don't think a guy like Cody is going to get in a position like that because, as Angel mentioned, he is a good defensive grappler, a good defensive wrestler, also can offensive wrestle, offensive grapple, and is really, really good with the hands. I see this going kind of the same way that the Gene Matsumoto fight went. Gene Matsumoto is another guy that is very, very well-rounded, can offensive wrestle offensively, defensive wrestle, has really, really good hands. And Dan had success, and I think he's going to have early success against Cody. But what happened? Gene made him work. made him work in the positions, also counter-wrestled him. What you have to do with these wrestlers is you have to be able to counter-wrestle them as well. Make them work to defend takedowns, because if they're just all offense, they can't, like Merab, right? If you just all offense, that's a lot easier to do than all of a sudden you have to defend the takedown, then reshoot the shot. And Cody is a guy that can also can offensive grapple and make Dan work on the defensive side as well. And once Gene started counter wrestling and they got back to space, Dan's gas tank faded pretty fast. And once his gas tank starts fading, he gets so desperate with the takedowns. His hands drop, he's just lunging in, and Gene was able to start lighting him up, which made him even more desperate, which was why the guillotine opened itself. It wasn't just a random Hail Mary lucky guillotine. He was tired, he was desperate, it was set up with the hands, Gene saw it coming. And I think the same thing could happen here. Cody's a black belt. He's going to be the way better striker. I think he can bide his time, let Dan start taking those shots, reverse a few shots, get back to space, beat him with the hands. Dan starts getting desperate, starts getting tired, and Cody's going to finish him the same way, either with the hands or the way Gene did it with the guillotine as well. But Dan is a fireball. He is really good at what he does, which is just crazy pressure, crazy wrestling. But I just don't think he's got the cardio to do it for all 3 rounds. And once he starts fading, he just really starts fading hard. And I think Cody's really, really good, man. I mean, he's got really, really good boxing, offensive, defensive grappling. I think Cody's going to be a fucking problem, and I'm all over him this week against Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Dan. I'm not betting on this fight because I do think of all of the UFC newcomers on this card, Dan has the highest percentage of playing spoiler. I think the rest of them are pretty locked in. He's got to win 2 rounds with wrestling and then hope to not be tired and get finished in the 3rd round. I mean, he doesn't really have hands. He's not going to be a submission threat to a guy like Cody, in my opinion. And I just don't think he's got the cardio to hold up for. I don't think he can do it. I mean, he tried to do it against Miles Johns. He couldn't do it. Obviously, the Ronnie Lawrence, it never really got to that point, and then he got smoked by Gene. I mean, he got really tired really fast against Gene because Gene made him work. Cody's going to make him work. Cody will make him work, too, because he doesn't even settle off his back. But I'll be rooting for Dan, and I hope I get the pick wrong.
People
that's
say
why there's no bet here.
That's like the Discord thing is like you and Dan is like a mini Angelo.
Why? He's handsome. I'm handsome. Is that why?
I don't. I'm not making that up right now. Literally, they say that he's like a mini Angelo. That you
we
guys
don't look alike at all.
Guys, can you confirm yes or no if they look alike, please?
I don't think we look alike at all.
I'm not saying don't. Hey, don't take it out on me. I'm just the messenger.
That's an upgrade to what I'm working with. Look at that jawline.
I'm just the messenger. I think he looked pretty decent with when he had longer hair.
When he did?
When he had longer hair.
He was California cool with that hair. Yeah, for sure. Well, $7,500 in DraftKings Fantasy. I actually might spend that because I think there is an upside here with all of the takedowns, the control. Go look at what he scored against Gene Matsumoto with 9 takedowns. That's 45 points. That's 45 points just on takedowns. 45 points just on takedowns in that fight, not including significant strikes or anything else. Something like that, a $7,500 guy, you need underdogs in your lineup. I think I will experiment with some Dan Argueta in my DraftKings Fantasy lineup. And if you want to check out what the optimizer has to say, what the artificial intelligence says, what the picks are, what the bets are, what everything else is, WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. It's freaking $10 for an entire month. That month includes 3 fight nights and UFC 308. We do have this comment here. Best $10 to ever spend is you guys. I think you should add another 0 to the subscription fee.
I agree.
If you do add another
that's on
0.
Twitch too. Shout out Twitch.
Yeah, we're streaming to Twitch, Kick, Rumble, and YouTube. If you do add another 0, the $10, it's a year. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. $100 is a full year. You basically get 2 months for free. WeOwnPicks.com. Click Become a Member.
Subscribe now and get grandfathered in before we change it to $100 a month.
I'm never raising that price. Just before people hear that.
I don't know.
I don't want people to hear that and not understand sarcasm.
I think I can convince Josh, and I think we could overthrow the government here.
Even if we lose half of them, but we triple the price. I mean, that is what other businesses do. That's what Netflix does. All right, we're going to raise the price by 20%. We'll lose 5%.
Yep.
We're up. We're not going to do that, though.
Even if we just do $12. just baby it up.
There's almost 4,000 of them.
The extra $2 covers this and that, and that's the gross. And We need a CFO.
Jacob is literally talking exactly like every large corporation. I promise you, we're not going to do that.
I'm the son of an accountant. I was real close to being an accountant. That's, you know, what's funny is I meant to mention this to Charles, and then I forgot because he was telling stories, and that was, if you haven't seen that interview with Charles, that was fantastic. He's a fantastic guy. He fights next week, so go check out an interview with Charles Johnson. We've done a few interviews. Yusuf, Yanez, Isaac Bulgarian, Jarzinho. We'll get some more people on there, but I forgot to mention because I originally went to college for accounting, and then I was like, well, this is fucking boring as shit. I was like, I need something. So then I was like, and that was like right when I got like a laptop, and like graphic design started like really blowing up, and I was doing I ran a Madden website, and I used to make signatures for people. Which, were you on forums and had signatures? I don't know if you were on forums like that back in the day.
No. But
on forums, when you made a comment, even today, on the bottom part of your comment was like an email signature, right? And people would have like certain like graphics. There was like a certain dimension graphics for like their favorite athletes or favorite teams or whatever, and I would make those for people. So I was like, I do that already. I'm going to go to school for graphic design. So I switched my major to graphic design. And then it was people like fucking Charles Johnson were the reason why I switched my major back to accounting, because they were just fucking crazy talented. I mean, Charles Johnson, if you guys don't know, Charles Johnson creates all his own shit. So if you've ever seen his shit, that dude's a crazy talented dude. So it literally was his fault. Like people like him, I was like, I'm never going to be, because I'm not an artist, right? I can do some stuff, whatever, but to be like that art, it's like, I can't fucking do that shit. So I was like, back to accounting I go.
I have zero. I'm the least creative person at all. Like, I have no creativity whatsoever at all. I'm very linear. When I have a decent idea, I'm like, oh my God. And it's just like, all right.
And then you're like and then you call me, what do you think? And I'm like, that's fucking stupid.
The best idea I've had in the last month was the last vlog where I did that whole Tiffany's leaving skit. And it was good, it was like a minute and a half.
Because
it was like, that's the best idea I had.
The best part was it was like hidden too.
Yeah. Well,
like
the editor hid
the blinds are closed, and I'm like, what's going on here?
What is It's like, but yeah, I mean, that's.
But also, you kind of actually outed yourself a little bit, because in Texas, Pornhub is banned unless you have an account, and the sound was the Pornhub sound.
Or a VPN.
Do you have an account?
We got a VPN.